So, day 2 with my Mercedes GLC 300 rental, and hear that noise actually? Maybe you can get the... So that's one little complaint. However, I did enjoy this one actually. I think like Mercedes still continues to do a really, really great job of giving you that little something extra that, it's missing from, other competitors as to like why you're paying, a little bit of a premium, for that particular brand. And I'm going to turn that off. There we go. So, however, that's unacceptable. That's something that would drive me nuts. So let's go ahead and start her up. And go ahead and go through all of our screens and menus. So as I mentioned yesterday, this is a 2023, I believe. I may have to edit that out, but as I showed yesterday too, you can go ahead and check, where your vehicle is manufactured. There's a little tag on the inside of every single door of every single car that shows, the date or the month and year of when the vehicle is manufactured. And then also, should show you like the origin, also like our, the final production place of like where your vehicle is manufactured. So I was actually curious about this one. So if you don't know, most, well, not most, but there's a very significant history on Mercedes SUVs in the US. Well, not that significant, but in the early 90s and throughout the 90s, they really didn't have any offerings here in the United States. They just had the G-Wagon, which you could only get that on gray market imports here in the US. It was only a European offering and rest of the world offering. And then came Jurassic Park 2, I believe, and the ML320 and I believe 500 in that V8 form debuted in the late 90s. And then it was basically Mercedes' answer to that midsize SUV or crossover SUV, and actually did pretty well in its initial years. The car magazines really enjoyed it, and I think the styling was something to be a little bit more to be desired. However, you can see now in this 2023 model, styling is definitely something that BMW or Mercedes has definitely knocked out of the park. I am just very, very thoroughly impressed with the styling. I think it's like, I love something that's actually, someone puts intent into that styling. And with this, there is so much going on here. But it's definitely got some drama, and gives you just that little bit of extra niceness that you're not going to get in some of its competitors, which this might be a little bit too much for people. Like, Mercedes, like, historically has always been kind of known for being a little bit more reserved and conservative. This is definitely not conservative by any means. This is very dramatic, especially for their small entry level-ish SUV, and it may be too much for people. So that is kind of a risk that they took with this more dramatic styling. But however, going back to that old ML320, it kind of looked like a minivan. That was kind of the biggest complaint, was the styling. And also it was produced in the United States, in the Alabama, plant. And so that too, up until that point, you're paying for that German-made quality. And when they brought it into the United States, it's kind of like, well, do you still have that same kind of quality? And so that's why I was curious, like where this one was made, is it made in that, Alabama plant, or is it actually still made in Germany? This one is actually made in Germany. And a little bit of history on this model here too. Like, didn't start out as a GLC. It actually came to the US as a GLK, which K, I believe, stands for Kleine, which is little or small. So small GL was like how it was initially positioned and branded when it came to the United States. Actually kind of a cool, distinctive little design to it. Like kind of like a little mini Jeep Safari kind of like looking thing. Still a car-based unibody SUV, but still not bad. But you know, I don't think it was as competitive like with everything else in the segment. It's a very, very crowded segment. You have, you know, offerings from all the major luxury makers, so Audi, Porsche, BMW, with the Q5, the Macan, and then the X3 from BMW. Then you have the Japanese offerings, you know, something from Infiniti, Lexus. Actually, Lexus, like, I think it's like an NT, it's something small and weird. But then like Acura, like with its RDX. So, and then even from the Americans, you have like something from Lincoln. You know, at one point it was letters. Now I believe it's a name, like a Corsair or something, which I've rented one of those and it does not compete. That thing, while on the surface, I'll do a video on that someday, but it was just bizarre. Like they tried, but they did not succeed in that one. When you compare it, you know, it's supposed to be competing with things like this. It may be a little bit cheaper, but not that much cheaper, you know, at the end of the day. So let's go ahead and get into it. We'll go ahead and go through all our fun menus. Here you have like your digital cockpit, you know, for your speedometer and all your major, you know, systems and, you know, controls, warnings, anything that, you know, you would see like on a normal, you know, dash has now gone digital. You know how I feel about screens. This is not for you. This is for basically Mercedes and every other manufacturer to cut cost. And we'll leave it at that. Actually, no, we know I will not leave it at that. I know these things will not last. This is not like Mercedes is of the 80s and even early 90s. And that's kind of the sad thing. Like, you know, they've gone away from that, you know, just kind of bankers, stodgy, you know, branding basically, and kind of perception, into this awesome, very just styled, shall I say like sexy even, like, you know, type of styling. And it's just not going to hold up over time. There's so many like electronics, even like with the gear shift here being that's all electronic. There's no physical lever anymore. We'll get into like the steering wheel controls, and I definitely appreciate, you know, what they're trying to do, you know, here, like with being a little bit different. You know, for example, you have slider controls now versus an actual physical button. So you can see, it's not going to work for me. We'll go here to home. Okay. Will that work? Playback now. Silly thing. Anyway, so instead of being an actual physical button, it's literally just the plastic, and it's haptic. I think that's the right word. It's you know, touch sensitive, but it's a virtual sliding, which again, you're in a Mercedes, so like, you know, for luxury, like it's supposed to be minimal effort with things. So why would you know, have a physical button that you have to like push with your hand? Like, you should just be able to like waft it. And I think actually BMW definitely on the 7 Series, maybe on the 5 Series, they ended up having some sort of like thing where you just kind of like wave your fingers, you know, you didn't even like touch anything. Don't know how well that actually worked in the long run, but that's my biggest fear of things like this, like where you don't have a physical button. You know, some of this stuff, like there is a little bit of like a button there, but for like any of these type of infinite settings, we'll call them, you know, type of controls, there's no button there. It's just a slider. So as we're looking here at the dash, let's go ahead and go through these controls first. So one thing, when I got into this yesterday, I was just thoroughly confused. I had no idea. There is no center buttons really. Actually, no, you have one actual real physical button. It's for your hazards. You have a thumbprint controller, a fingerprint, you know, reader here, so that basically, I think for, you know, if you valet or loan your car out a lot or something, then you can basically program like certain controls to only work for you. So again, is that necessary? I don't know. I don't think so. It may have some other, you know, functionality as well too. Let me know in the comments. But there was no physical buttons. So like getting into this, it's kind of a little bit foreign when I got in yesterday. I will say after a day, it becomes pretty second nature. You know, it's not that complicated once you are in it for a little bit, but in that first 5, 10, 20 minutes of driving it yesterday, I didn't like it at first. It was like, I don't understand this whole touch, like fake scrolling thing here. Even like with the controls, and I'll show you here in a minute, for the you know, your first screen here for your speedometer, your dash screen, we'll call it the dash screen. So basically that's a physical button, so that's good. But here where your arrows are, that is not a physical button. That is a sliding, like this, which once you get used to it, it works pretty quick. It's pretty intuitive, but that basically goes through all your configurations for how you want your dash to be laid out. It could just be navigation, for example, which is gonna be pretty simple. We'll go back. This is your classic gauge layout. Go hit home, go back to this. You have a sport option, which sure, gives you some very like, you know, well, that's interesting. Can we like exit out of that? If we put it in drive, there we go. It doesn't like to idle. Sure, gives you lots of little warnings. Okay. What else? We'll go through more of these little menus here. Go back to home. Understated, you know, that's kind of nice. Like if you don't want like a bunch of stuff in your face and to be distracted with all these like different graphics. And back to this other layout. So, but to get through this one actually, so mark that has 16,077 miles. It's held up okay, but there's been a couple things which I'll point out here in a bit that did not hold up that well. I was a little surprised, being only, you know, a year-ish old, year and a half. Check that date. But anyway, you know, again, so just kind of like scrolling from here gives you like your, you know, your fuel consumption. Well, this is like a fun thing that like rolls around, but you know, like how economically you're driving, your economic score for your driving, make sure that you're, you know, not burning up too many leaves and trees and all that fun stuff. Your instant fuel consumption. This here will like beep at you if you haven't taken a break in a while, and then, you know, let you know like whatever's like playing through like, you know, your phone or on the radio at that time. Going back here to home, assistance, what does that do? It's fun. It just kind of is very simple. Play with that one later. Off-road. I was actually surprised that it has like this much like off-roady stuff. This is a GLC. I don't picture people really taking this off-road. There's no, as far as I can tell, like way to like lock a differential or anything, or like put it like in a low range. Maybe it does some sort of weird virtual kind of like low range or something, but it has like these like steering angles and stuff, and like you know, to make sure you don't like tip over as you're going off-road in your GLC. And then what's also really interesting is when, so you get off of that screen, if you go here to dynamic, which I did like this button actually too, so it allows you very, very easily to change between your different drive modes. So, you know, in sport, comfort, you know, it's going to keep everything, you know, you're at a very Mercedes comfort level. Eco is going to help you save some fuel. And then off-road, so I guess if you activate this, it's going to maybe, I don't know, change the transmission mapping, maybe only start in a certain gear. And then definitely it says it's going to like, I believe it says it will like limit your speed, you know, to 68 miles an hour so that you don't, you know, burn out like those differentials or anything. So, so pretty simple. And like, that's something I definitely did appreciate once you got into it, was that once you figured out this giant screen, again, this was part of the update from 2023. So just did a quick check on that, and yes, it is 2023 is when they did the update. I'll have to check the manufacturer date on this one again, but basically, yeah. So they came up with this kind of, they introduced this old kind of like layout, you know, in the S-Class a few years before, and that's how kind of Mercedes ends up, you know, working. A lot of the German manufacturers do that. They'll come out with the technology and the design and like their top flagship model, and then it slowly transcends down into you know, their lower, a little cheaper models, and it seems to work for them. Like, you know, gives you like, you still have that level of prestige, you know, that's like seen like in a big S-Class or something, and then, you know, it's still seen, you know, throughout you know, the lineup, you know, in less expensive models. So one thing I didn't like this at first. I still am not a big fan, but if you're gonna have a big screen, fine. Give you like, it's nice that this dedicated space here for your climate control. For the life of me, I could not figure out when I first got into it, like how to direct like you know, the airflow. Even like here in climate menu, it was just still a little like, this is the graphics I think could be a little bit more intuitive. You know, usually like instead, you know, this arrow is kind of like pointing up. Most cars it points like directly to you. So like little things like that, you know, that, you know, can make things a little bit easier for, you know, the target demo for this vehicle, which honestly, I don't even know anymore. Like, your Mercedes, again, like, you know, is that banker's car, like, you know, that, kind of very just kind of conservative, luxury, a, you know, standard of luxury, you know, one could say. And I think it still is, but it's got a lot more pizzazz and drama and just, you know, almost, like I said, downright sex appeal, than they used to, you know, from the past. But I will say, this year, I do appreciate that they kept the look of the physical buttons. So if you are a former Mercedes, you know, driver, you know, you kind of still like, okay, so my climate control has always been this like circle thing, at least I think since like the late 2010s. So it's familiar. And so I think that does help, you know, with like the learning curve to adapt to, you know, this newer technology. So go ahead and lower that fan speed there and get out of that. And then go ahead, and I want to show the controls here. So let's try this. So this was my other big thing. I was like, how do you adjust any of the controls? I'll move this, move my water. But when I got in the vehicle, this is what there's nothing here. It's just a big cup holder now with your charging pad, only USB-C, which was interesting. And so with that, like, I was like, oh shit, how do I charge my phone? You do have wireless charging. I'm not the biggest fan of wireless charging. I think it's slow and weird and stupid. But you do have a wireless charging pad in there. Some people in like the reviews think it's kind of weird and out of reach. I think it's fine at the end of the day. Like, yes, it's buried under there, but you shouldn't be looking at your phone anyway. And if you're using Apple CarPlay, then everything is going to come through, you know, your screen there for your messages and phone. And, you know, anything that you need to like be touching on your phone, you can do it through your CarPlay in a nice, safe way. But I could not figure out, like, is it just a big touchscreen? I'm just like, it can't be for that. And then if you'll notice here, this is very similar to this over here. And this side here controls all the functions for, do that again, all the functions for your screen. So with that, you don't have to do any of the touching of the screen. I think intuitively, and you can see there's a bunch of fingerprints already over it, people will touch the screen. So, but we'll go ahead and go through all like the little menus here real quick. So you got your apps. So just 3. So if you remember on that BMW, there was like a lot more than 3. Settings. So one thing I noticed on this one, it does have adaptive cruise control. Quick history lesson on that. I do believe Mercedes actually was one of the first manufacturers to bring adaptive cruise control to the market. I think it was called Distronic. It showed up on the S-Class, I believe, in the early 2000s. Don't quote me on the platform number. My phone is, so that's, I guess if your phone is dying, it will keep giving you this warning. But anyway, so it did have adaptive cruise control, but no lane keep assist that I could find. So I don't know. So if we go here to collision avoidance, so like basically your active brake assist, blind spot assist, but here under driving, downhill, maybe to make sure you don't, go past the speed limit when you're going down hills. With assistance, that's that thing with that coffee thing, that countdown. Cameras, I believe this is for, oh, it made a noise back there. I guess like look at the camera. I don't know. That's weird. Seems like something would break. Okay, parking. So there's lots and lots of cameras here for parking. Thank you. And yeah, it's typical what you're going to get in a luxury automobile today. I'll show you here very momentarily, but I was actually looking for this for parking. So there's different like tones you could set, which is nice, so it's not screaming at you. Audio fade out, so this is like, so when you're backing out, you know, you're not distracted. And then there goes that. It's warning me again because we've been talking too much and it doesn't like to stay idle. But yeah, so again, biggest call out I could say here is that this is by far leagues, can we say it again, leagues easier to operate than what was in like the BMW from that i4. This is so much more just simple. Maybe it's just like how the graphics are, but it is just way easier to like navigate through the system. So in luxury cars today too, there's just a lot of configurability that you can do, but again, this makes it you know, the Mercedes system is just very, so whenever you say like a keyword, the Mercedes voice assistant will pop up. I haven't figured out what that word is yet, but she just did it. Anyway, ambient, so your so on light, your headlamps, your daytime running lights, interior exterior lights, you know, different little settings there. Ambient lighting, so this is cool. So you can actually, and one thing I pointed out in that BMW, you can really, there's like a whole array of different, the one thing that's not sliding, so that's kind of funny. You got all these sliders, there we go. So you can see there in your little graphic, and you can see in real time, do it there, as they change. So that's fun. Instead of like on that BMW we had a few weeks ago, you can do this monochrome, you do this is wild. You can do like literally like a different, like a custom, and use like preset settings, which is, you know, kind of fun. Like, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of gimmicky. Malibu sunset, that looks wild. Miami roses, yes, I know, thank you. Likes to warn you a lot. And then there's this like effects, you know, type of thing too, where they'll put on like a light show for you. Not necessary, but cool. A little bit extra, a little bit special, you know, that you're gonna get here, like, you know, in this entry-level Mercedes. So going back to home, hit it again, comfort, we did that, hit it again, in your phone settings, radio, media, off-road, info's kind of cool. We'll go and post kind of like a live shot of this, but shows your fuel consumption in this nice graph. If you're into, you know, hyper mileaging and seeing if you can hyper mileage your GLC 300, which I forgot to mention, it is a mild hybrid, and we'll get into that like in the recap, and if I would actually buy this, lease this, or whatever, own this, and my reasoning for that. But that mild hybrid is a factor in that decision. Your vehicle here, again, those like you know, different angles for your different axes, I guess, like for your tilt, but then also, you know, how far down, up, you know, what kind of angle you're on, you know, too. And then engine power, I'll throw in a graphic of that. Oh, my phone's really dying here. And yeah, so that's the majority. And then, like, I will say the map is very crisp and clear. I think this is really cute. I mentioned this yesterday, where it's like just this little GLC 300 icon. So yeah, not bad. It was 3D. So it's 2D. North orientation. Do that again. So 2D. North orientation only, and then I got 3D. I like it in 3D. You know, it does, I think it's just a little more intuitive as you're, you know, using the map. Okay, real quick, other shots. This one here comes again. Here's a slider for the sunroof. And again, she is a big sunroof. One of these full panoramics. I don't think this is standard. I think it just comes with the standard, you know, this part here. But it is nice. It creates a nice kind of open space. And then I believe if you do it again, it'll go ahead and open the roof for you. It's a nice sunny day today. See if we can go back any farther. Is that it? I guess. Oh, that's sad. That's it. Up here you have some, can't really see it here, but you have, again, some more ambient lighting. Again, that's kind of like fun texture, you know, add some of that, you know, fun, sexy drama that Mercedes is trying to, you know, go with here. And what else? That's pretty much it. Again, this is their small, just GLC SUV. So it's not very big, kind of big enough maybe for just 2 people on a road trip. You know, if you do put some people back there, then, I wouldn't recommend going cross country in it. It might be a little uncomfortable, but for 2 people, it's fine. And then you can see maybe it's kind of bright out, but that ambient lighting coming through, you know, there on the back door panels. And then also, you know, there as well too, all the way down through here. So at night, that's truly a light show. Unfortunately, I gotta get this back before it gets dark, and did not get a night shot. So maybe on next time's rental, if we get the same one again. And go ahead and get this out of off-road mode. Perfect. All right, so my overall thoughts on this GLC 300. It's not bad. I think, you know, it's definitely, you know, worth looking at on a lease. I think new, they start around high 40s, low 50s. It gets you some pretty decent standard features. You're not going to get, again, that panoramic sunroof, I think, but for the GLC 300, you know, powertrain wise and everything, it's this mild hybrid, which basically just slightly improves fuel economy. I think it's a turbo 4-cylinder with the hybrid. So that's a lot of things that can go wrong, you know, and that's why I would not buy it. I would not buy a used one unless it's certified pre-owned, and I just want to keep it up until the end of that warranty, or right before that warranty expires. Because again, it's all, besides all of this that can break, these complicated like engine systems, like, you know, naturally aspirated engine, there's no turbo, there's no hybrid. Granted, you're not going to get the best fuel economy. It may not be the fastest off the line, but a naturally aspirated like Mercedes V8, like an old like SLS, like AMG, even like the older AMG GTs, I believe that still had that big, like, I think it was like a 6.2 liter or something, but like those like engines, like they're handcrafted from an AMG, and they don't need like all that kind of like tricks and wizardry to save like an extra mile per gallon to like meet some sort of EPA standard, or yeah, it's pretty much it. Or like, you know, I guess like give you a little bit better performance. Because at the end of the day, battery packs, they do weigh, you know, add extra weight to the car. And so it's going to affect your driving dynamics. But then also, they don't last forever. I told you like that, mentioned that last video, that, you know, replacing the battery on a hybrid, you know, it's not as expensive as an EV, but there's a cost to it. It can be, you know, then my parents spent like almost $4,000 replacing their hybrid battery on their Prius. So that's why I would not get a used hybrid, especially from, I'd maybe consider it Toyota, maybe. If the battery has been replaced, they tend to last a little bit longer. They've been known, I think, as long as it's been driven, to like last a while. But I'm sorry, for Mercedes or anything German or even Korean, really, like, I don't think I would do a high mileage or anything over even 100,000 miles. That's the hybrid or anything that's been electrified or turbocharged or anything like that. Real quick too, is you can notice some of this trim at 16,777 miles has started to get kind of worn off. So that's where I'm like, okay, on a lease, maybe it's kind of fun. It's cute if you can get this thing for like under $400 a month, like on a lease. Have fun with it for like 3 years, then just get your new one. Some of these things, like steering wheel feels very nice, but this plastic here is so cheap. Like, you know, you'll see like that obligatory, like if you see like on TikTok, people like pressing like all the panels. And yes, it does rattle. It does creak a little bit. One thing I'll go ahead and insert too, I was like, why is it, you know, for Mercedes, it's supposed to actually ride really, really nice. And it has these, these like sport wheels on it. And it's an upgrade package. I think it's called AMG Light. They're these nice black multi-spoke wheels. And the problem is though, like, as soon as I got into it, I know I had a little bit of an alignment problem. And when you put like super aggressive like sport tires, like they don't last that long. They last 15,000 miles maybe, if you're lucky. And like the fronts, they're almost like, they're not bald. Like I think they're still safe to drive on, but they're definitely worn down. And you know, it's kind of like, it defeats the purpose of like kind of getting a Mercedes too. You want something that's gonna like have this like super luxurious ride. And when you put these super aggressive sport tires on it, not even that super aggressive, but for like a GLC 300, they're fairly aggressive. It's definitely going to impact the ride, especially as those tires start to wear down. And yeah, that's, you know, kind of like a little bit sad that like, you know, the ride quality really wasn't there. But again, this interior is just beautiful. I absolutely love it. We'll do like a real quick, as we go into reverse, like through all these different low camera angles. So forward view, back view. Let's go ahead and close this so we get a little bit better. So it's not so bright. A little side camera view, so it gives you a nice rendering of like, you know, your GLC 300. Oh wow, we can look at like that side of it too. There's like an auto button that gives you kind of this like bird's eye 360 view. So that's like that whole saving camera thing. I don't know why that's needed, but maybe you can tell me in the comments why you would want that. But parking assist, that's interesting. Oh, one thing that was actually pretty cool, and then I will wrap this up. So if we go ahead and put you back into park and go here into comfort, seat. So seats. So this is another cool, just like luxury feature. I don't know how great it is. I know my phone's dying. But I haven't seen this. Maybe it's buried in some menu in the GMs and the Fords and the Lincolns and even that Cadillac. But based on your height, so like, you know, if you're getting into a new car, like you don't know, you know, really all the seat settings are. And with Mercedes, which is really cool, like they've had this forever. So very, very intuitive. A little shape of the seat. So basically each little thing adjusts, you know, front and back and forth for your backrest, and then for your headrest. You can hear it there whirling, but always loved this. I thought this was so cool. Like even like when Daimler and Chrysler got together, they put, you know, this into like, you know, Chrysler Pacificas, and it's like, oh my God, it's like a Mercedes, you know, in a Chrysler. But yeah, so and you have your memory functions there. But you know, if you aren't quite like, you know, sure, like, you know, you can adjust your seat fine. Like there's so many like little settings for it. You can go over here into these settings and automatic seat position. You just put in like your height. So, you know, I'm like 5'11". There we go. And then if you hit start, it will go ahead and adjust to what a 5'11" person, a typical one, you know, that optimal seating position. Of course, it's not going to know what, you know, is perfect for you and what you like driving, but at least it gives you kind of a nice starting point. And of course, you could save that over there in the memory. All right, wrapping up. So go back here to home. Yeah, like I said, it's not bad. Like on a lease, sure. Definitely would not buy it. I do appreciate that they do still come in these like kind of like fun colors. And yeah, it's not bad. You know, I do appreciate like these little subtle touches, you know, from like, you know, the fabric on the A-pillar. You know, definitely nice, you know, softer touch materials here and there. However, you can start to see some like little wear, you know, after only about a year's worth of like, you know, real driving, 17,000 miles, you know, on the trim where it's starting to kind of come off, which is kind of sad because like, you know, there's Mercedes from like, you know, the 80s and 90s. If you took care of them, like an S-Class or an SL, or even like a, you know, a nice E500 or something, they're definitely gonna hold up, I think, better than this will. But we live in kind of that throwaway world these days, which is unfortunate. But yeah, test it out, drive it. So yeah, I totally think it's like worth looking at, and we'll see you in the next one. One last thing that's so funny with Mercedes is that they have this kind of like granny shift lever, but it works. It's out of your way. Again, this feels totally cheap, this plastic. So I'm hoping, I haven't driven an S-Class in a very long time, so I'm hopefully that material is a little bit nicer than it is here. And you can see it even gets a little scratched up. Like, it's like, come on, Mercedes. But you got to cut costs somewhere and maintain, you know, some sort of margin. But again, it's not, it gives me like kind of like those vibes of like an old, you know, country squire, you know, even like a Buick Roadmaster or something. But it works. It's out of the way. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. So another cool thing too is these awesome vents. I will say, like, they are kind of plasticky and stuff, but they do have these nice, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, it's ambient lighting inside of them. So again, it gets very dramatic at night with this. But again, it's that design and style that, you know, I truly do appreciate. You can hear that vent from the vented seats. I think that's a little bit unacceptable, you know, still. But overall, not too bad. Did want to show real quick this Burmeister upgraded sound system. So there's a lot of like little controls you can do in that. Again, home. So going here, looking at the Burmeister sound system real quick. So going here to radio, sound. So yes, Burmeister. Don't judge my pronunciation, but a lot of little different things. 3D sounds can give you a little bit more kind of like, again, in the moment sound, more like you're there living it. This is more, and that's also, this is recreated with the 3D sound. So but yeah, it's a nice little upgrade. It sounds nice. I think the coolest thing is actually these like speaker grades. Very, very, very special.